All right, we will go ahead and get started. So to recap, what two US locations made the National Geographic Top 25 places to visit? Number 1 is Philadelphia, and number 2 is the Grand Canyon. Again, my name is Jeff Wild. I'm with the team at Club OS based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And today we're here to talk about the power of human connection. This will be a little bit of a how-to presentation, so a lot of information is going to be coming your way. So I want to thank you all for taking the time to learn about objection handling, establishing referrals, and really just improving your overall sales process on today's webinar. Let's go ahead and get that moving forward. So this is me, this is Jeff Wild. Some background on myself that's related to the industry. I was a personal trainer at Town Sports International for Philadelphia Sports Club. I did own a hockey academy for 7 years that offered strength and conditioning programming to athletes of all ages from basically 8 years old up through college and professional athletes, and overall have 15 years plus in sales and operations. So understanding the human connection in the sales process has been core to my career to date. And if you didn't catch it, a few months ago, August 29th, we did what was essentially part 1 of a webinar series we're doing called Fitness as Religion. We did that with ABC Financial. It was on customer experience as a competitive advantage, which really this human connection is an extension of that. We have part 3 coming in December, which I'll talk about towards the end of this, which is more about the application of data and reporting into marketing efforts. But today we're here for part 2, the power of human connection, handling objections, establishing referrals, and improving sales. So let's go ahead and get started. I don't know if anyone has seen this yet. Sephora, a large retailer, has created an interesting customer experience at their store. They have introduced color-coded shopping baskets to alert staff what type of experience that shopper wants. And you'll see 2 kinds here, a black basket which says, I would like to shop on my own, and a red basket which shows, I would like to be assisted. And this is really interesting. One is interesting that I couldn't find a good photo of this because it's really just going over social media. So this is a Twitter photo, and there's really no professional photography of this customer experience. But it's also interesting that you can think about this as who wants to serve themselves and who wants assistance. So on the black basket side of I would like to shop on my own, you could think of the emerging online sales application to fitness centers, which is great for someone like me. I have my master's in exercise science. I've played sports for over 20 years. I know exactly what regimen I want to do, what type of facility I want to work out in. I want to see pictures. I want to sign up online. So you're not really going to hear much from me other than paying my bill and coming to your facility. Now, the people we're here to talk about today are the ones that are actively raising their hands and saying, I'm interested to learn more. I want to know about your facility, and I want to come in for an on-site tour. And this is really where we see the power of the human connection being critical to the success of your business and your sales model. So let's recap some of the customer experience discussion from part 1 of this webinar series. We need to look at the total customer journey to understand where these things happen and how sales management is really changing to sales coaching. First is objection handling. This is critical in the purchasing cycle. This is when someone has actively come into your facility, they've toured around. We're almost always going to encounter some sort of objection, but there are things we're going to discuss today which can reduce the number of objections you hear. But then there's also going to be a portion where we talk about how to handle objections that will, of course, come out. We're also going to talk about referrals, what they mean for loyalty, how you can establish a process around referrals, and how it's best to do it from a person-to-person experience versus a constant email or text campaign. And then overall, how do you look to improve your sales process? And this is an evolution that's happening right now in a lot of industries, and it's really changing how sales management is done, and it's becoming more personal. So this is really important, and it's also showing a greater collaboration between sales and marketing. So Just some things to think about as we talk about these topics today. And then finally, the last recap from the last presentation is what happens as trust increases, and really how is trust set up. So trust is personal. It's a very human to human component. I have a hard time trusting a computer or technology. I do not have a hard time trusting people that I know and like. So as trust increases, you can see revenue increase, loyalty increase, retention increase, your own staff's morale increase. And as trust decreases, you can see costs go up, stress go up, attrition go up. So it's really important that we think about how do we have the right constructs to create a really powerful human connection in our fitness facility. So let's dive into the human connection. I like to start my presentations with a quote. This one is from an interesting article about Jerry Seinfeld, where he says, consistency increases capacity and consistency increases ability. So when we break this down, consistency is really critical to your sales process. In his example, he talks about writing a joke every single day on a calendar and then looking at it over time and understanding how he can put together storylines and be creative. And it really allowed him to operate more efficiently over the long term. And when we think about sales and marketing automation, that email and text campaign that we can have can be consistent, and it can give our people the capacity to do more every single day on the floor of your fitness facility or on the sales side. And we'll talk about that in more depth in a second. And then consistency increases ability. So going out there and actually talking to people on a consistent basis, having a process that you follow is going to increase your ability to sell and sell the right way. Being salesy is definitely not something we want to establish. And that's what we often see in the on-site tour center. You meet the prospect and you show them through your facility from your lens of what makes you different versus understanding them. So we'll talk about the processes we want to put in place. So before this webinar, we did poll the market and we had a good response rate. So the first thing we asked is, when a lead comes in, how quickly do you respond? And we offered some options. We got 93 responses. And the first thing you'll see is 57% of respondents said we follow up via phone, email, or personal contact immediately or up to 1 hour, which is great. That segment of the population is probably using technology to drive that. They're really understanding the different channels that people can come in from and how to automate that process to make it efficient and quick. The next is about 40% of people say they follow up via phone, email, or personal contact when a salesperson or employee is available, usually within 1 day. That's pretty good. The follow-up is quick. But when you break that down, are salespeople constantly busy because they're sending out one-to-one emails, one-to-one text messages, and one-to-one phone calls to all the leads that are coming in, which can be a big challenge, especially for groups that are HVLP and you're seeing membership over 1,000 in your facility. It becomes very challenging to manage that many leads coming in on a daily, weekly basis. So we're going to talk about technology only for a very little portion of this presentation and then move on to the human side. What you really need for a foundation for success is a combination of CRM and marketing automation. And yes, this is something that ClubOS does do, but we're not here to talk about ClubOS specifically. There are other players in the marketplace that do this as well. But what's critical is you understand that these things are different. So a CRM is a little bit more of a storage facility. It adds contact information to a database. It collects data over time. It assigns tasks over time. It updates profile information over time. It's really tracking the relationship from start to finish. Versus marketing automation adds a contact to a list. So did that contact come in through Facebook, through a website, through an on-site walk-in, through a phone call? What list do they go to? What workflow do they go in? If they actually interact with that workflow, they're raising their hand, they're hitting the call to action, they're saying, I am interested in learning more. You then sell them and then they become a customer. So it manages the type of communication someone gets based on how they engage your brand, which is really important. So kind of the minimum that you need to meet today's market expectation is a technology-driven interaction, because your brand needs to be consistent across different segments. It needs to be accessible via Facebook, via a website, through email, through text, through phone call, and that accessibility needs to be consistent across the different channels, and then it needs to be personalized. So if you think about the different types of campaigns you run, if you run something like a sale promotion, a price promotion, you know these buyers are going to be more price conscious, which is an important profile to understand when they come into the tour, versus a personal training promotion, small group training promotion, a weight loss promotion. You can have different journeys help to inform how you want to personalize the experience for this type of member. And all of that is in an effort to establish trust. So now let's start to move over to the human side of this. Really, the best balance you can have is a high-tech, high-touch solution in your facility, and your people drive your customer experience. They drive it from that minimum expectation of, I do expect a response within an hour, to once I come into your facility, I do expect a personalized interaction. So the high-tech, high-touch mentality is really important as we move forward into how can you empower your staff to actually have the proper human connection, have that foundation of meeting the minimum expectation from a customer engagement standpoint to make an impact. So let's just quickly talk about improving your sales process before we move on to handling objections and establishing referrals, because this is kind of the linchpin for everything. One is understand your buying profiles. So know who your gym is selling to. What are the top 2 or 3 people that buy from your facility? Are you a premium facility that really wins on adding more services, having the mix of family and work and a workout facility all in one place? Are you a budget facility, where you're really pulling people in based on cost, and then over time you're increasing value by offering better amenities like a tanning studio or a hydro massage? So understanding your profiles is really important to know what type of questions and talk tracks you want to build into your sales process. So you know your profiles better than we do. So it's going to be really important that you take the time to look at those profiles and say, what type of questions will resonate with those people? Make sure you have tailored tours for the different types of people that buy from you. So one standard tour trained to your staff is not good enough anymore. Walking someone through the gym and showing them the equipment, whether it's a 25-year-old person who's been a college athlete, or a 37-year-old person who's gained 20 pounds, or a 45-year-old mother with a family of 3, it's not the same tour. You need to understand your buying profiles, and you need to understand the type of tour you need to give to those profiles. So from a sales management perspective, you need to build that process into your sales staff. This is really where we start to hit that human connection. Ask, listen, confirm, validate, all in the effort to understand what's their why. So we'll put this into practice. You're giving someone a tour. You ask them what brought them in, and they say, I've been trying to lose 20 pounds for the last 3 to 4 years. I've really been struggling. I've tried to run more at home. I've tried to online workout. I've went to Comcast On Demand and tried a couple different workouts there. I haven't had any success. So I have finally come into a gym to look at what my options are. So if you're really listening to that person, you can confirm with them, your goal is to lose weight, and you can validate you want to come somewhere where you will be held accountable, and then ask them if that's correct. So I understand that you're trying to lose 20 pounds. You're looking for a facility that's going to hold you more accountable, make it more likely that you actually work out. Is that correct? Am I hearing you properly? And once that person says yes, you can really go through a tour much more effectively. If they say no, it's a gateway for you to ask more questions to understand what's really going on. So this is a critical component of building question asking into your sales process versus having a canned 15-minute tour where you're scheduled back to back to back. Someone comes into your facility and you just say, this is what it is, take it or leave it. No, you want to take the 5 minutes up front to understand what's important to that person, why they're there today, and then show them the aspects of your facility that meet that need the best. Some cases it might be personal training. In some cases it might be a standard membership. In other cases it might be going through the small group training schedule to pick out the 2 or 3 classes that really align with them. So that's a critical step in the sales process. When you start to look at the data, you can start to understand common objections by profile. So this is where we see a marriage of that high tech and that high touch. So if I'm a really good sales manager at a single location facility or at a multi-location facility that's using a CRM and marketing automation, I can understand where these different profiles are coming in from. Are they coming in from Facebook? Are they coming in from our website, different email campaigns that go out? And really educate my staff on, okay, if they're coming in from an email campaign about price, a common objection is of course going to be, this is too expensive. Or there might be the push off of, I need to go home and think about it. So you can start to understand what is typical for a certain profile and build into your tour of how to get over that objection before the person brings it up. And we'll talk about that more in the objection section, but it's a really critical process to look at the data and understand how to coach your team. Sales management is making a big shift. So sales management used to be much more about, here's the data, here's the volume you need, I need to see more activity, make 100 phone calls, get 5 to 10 sales based on those 100 phone calls with no other information around it. Today, because of the interaction of technology and people, we're moving away from that. We're better geared to understand who buys for what reasons, these profiles, what are their whys typically, and what are their common objections. You can get through a lot of that by having better question asking and listening skills. So sales managers need to build role playing into sales meetings and sales trainings versus teaching everyone how to sell the gym from the gym's perspective. You need to sell the gym from the buyer's perspective. If it's about weight loss, if it's about community, if it's about price, personal training, small group training, you need to understand that and sell those services, not the gym as a whole from a general point of view. So it's really important that you take the time to set up your sales meetings properly, to coach your staff on how to ask questions, how to really listen, how to unpack what's going on there, and then how to handle objections, which we'll talk about in this webinar, more effectively. And then last but not least, this is a commonly overlooked part, know who your social butterflies are. Know what members are really engaging and active and like to talk to people. So if you're giving a tour and someone is talking about weight loss or strength and conditioning, or they're training for a marathon, and you know Gary over there has come to your facility 200 times in the last year, his initial goal was to run the New York Marathon, he did it, and he's highly engaging, you talk to him frequently, you might take the time to go over and say, hey Gary, do you have 5 minutes to talk to this prospect about your experience training here and getting set up to run the New York City Marathon? So when you know who your social butterflies are, you can take that opportunity to ask. And that really validates a few things for that prospective buyer. It social norms the process for them so they see that someone else has the same exact set of needs that they had. And it gives them the 2 or 3 minutes it takes to ask a question or two to say, hey, did you use this personal trainer or did you use this small group class to get ready for this type of race? And it creates credibility more so that your salesperson could ever do. So don't overlook what members might be a part of your sales process, and don't hesitate to talk to them about it. You know, people who are social butterflies typically like this. They like outreach, they like engagement, they're extroverts. So be sure to think about that when you look at your facility beyond your sales team as part of your sales process. And this is a great quote from Brian Tracy. Telling is not selling. So telling people about your facility is not selling it. Only asking questions is selling. So asking them about their needs, what their values are, what's important to them about their fitness regimen is how you're going to sell them. So that's enough on looking at your sales process and sales management style and how to improve it. Now let's move on to objection handling. So again, we polled people. How often do you deal with objections? Everyone deals with objections sometime. So 25% of the time, 27% of our audience, 50% of our time is the majority. So half of the time you give a tour, you are seeing some sort of objection. That was about 40% of our respondents. 70% of the time, 75% of the time was 29% of our respondents, and 4% get 100% objections on every sales process. So if you add that up, we have 50, 59, 67, like 70% of our people, 74% of our people get an objection more than half the time. So you really need to think about your process and what you can do to improve that and get down closer to 25%, which we'll talk about. And then what's your process for handling objections? We polled people. You saw a good response rate here. 40% say they have a predetermined list of responses. That's great. You should have a predetermined response. And about 58% say they address objections on a case-by-case basis. Every prospect is different. That's also great. So people are doing things mainly the right way. We kind of want to mash those two together and make sure that the predetermined list isn't a script. It's more of talking points and the right questions to ask, and allowing your sales staff to understand the solution and use their creativity to solve it versus telling them exactly how to respond. But we're seeing a good response there. So here's what you want to avoid when objections do come up. Or here's what you want to do to try to avoid objections in the tour process as a whole. So have a process for asking questions. Again, understanding what that buyer's why is. This should be the first 5 minutes of every single tour you do. Before you hit any section of your gym, your staff should be asking them questions about why are they here, what have they tried in the past, what are their goals moving forward, and documenting them, writing them down, making sure those things go into the CRM, and really understanding what drives that person's behavior. Then they should have the intelligence from the better sales coaching that they're getting in their sales process to understand, okay, this is this type of buyer, this matches our profile, here's the typical needs they have, here's the type of audience they typically fit into, so here's how I'm most likely going to talk to them. And then don't be scared to introduce these objections in the tour. So get out in front of the objections. Typically people start to object at the end, right? They wait until they get all the way through and then they start to say, well, the price is maybe a little bit too high. But you can get out ahead of that if you understand the profile and how to introduce objections and alleviate them. And one of the best ways to do that is through social norming, which we'll talk about here. So a common objection, probably the most common objection, someone says, I want to think about it. That's really a stall tactic, right? They're not saying anything is wrong with the facility. So on the tour, you can start to get them to start nodding yes by saying, are these the type of classes that you would want to be involved with? You know, when you're thinking about this decision, does this facility meet your needs from a convenient, close to home or work viewpoint? You can get in a 25-minute workout viewpoint, whatever they've brought up in the past, you can start to kind of call out, are you thinking about this and making a decision to say yes in the tour process? I don't have enough time. So same thing you can talk about, I know this profile, someone who's trying to lose weight, but they work a lot and they travel a lot. How can I get in front of the common objection of I don't have enough time? So as you're walking the floor, you can give an example of, like 80% of our people tell us that they don't have enough time when they sign up, but we put together this portion of our gym so they can do a 25-minute circuit very quickly. I can show you that right now if you want, or when you come in the first time, we can set up a personal trainer to walk you through what a 25-minute circuit might look like. And that's part of your membership. It doesn't cost anything, but now you're getting in front of, I don't have enough time. You've social normed it by saying something like 80% of our new members say they don't have enough time. So you're telling them you guys know this is a problem, but those people still sign up because you have addressed it. So get out ahead of that objection in the tour process. This is a common one we hear. I know I don't stick with my routine or see results, so I typically get frustrated and quit. Again, think about this, how can you cross-sell or upsell here, but get out ahead of something and say, a lot of people come into our facility are first-time fitness members. They haven't worked out before. So because of that, we offer a once-a-month check-in with a personal trainer. When they come in for their first 2 or 3 sessions, we make sure that they're comfortable with the machines, the facility, where they can stretch, where they can do cardio, where they can lift. We help them develop a routine that they can follow for 2 days a week or 3 days a week. And then if they want, every month or so, they can get weighed in, they can get a body fat analysis. So bring this up in the tour and talk about it as you're going through. Don't wait for that to come up at the end. And then I can't afford it. So this means typically you didn't highlight your value good enough. So make sure as you're going through, you're calling out key points that align with their interests. So if someone's trying to lose weight, you might have something like once a month nutrition counselor come in. You can go through and say, included in your basic membership package is we have a nutrition counselor come in. They do small group classes for all of the people in our facility who are trying to lose weight. It's great because it helps people meet each other, but it's also great because it helps them understand how to eat more healthy in their week to week. So call out value drivers that really align to your cost. So when it comes up at the end, you can recap them and show them that it really doesn't cost too much. Of course, it has to be the right profile for you. Someone who's typically buying Planet Fitness isn't going to buy an Equinox membership. So you have to understand what the right profile is to make sure you're addressing their concerns properly. So that's building in messaging into your tour to get in front of objections is really important to start to reduce your objections at the end of the tour. But naturally, they are going to come up. So how you manage objections is really important. 1, never argue an objection. This is the typical salesy used car salesman type of approach. They try and bull you over. They try and tell you why you're wrong. As a salesperson today, if you win an argument, you almost always lose the deal because that just means you're showing the person that they're wrong and you're right. And that's not really the best way to establish a relationship. So don't argue with them. First, be empathetic. Let them know that you do understand that this is a problem. I do understand that time is a concern for you or cost is a concern for you. You may want to go home and talk to your significant other. Make sure that your salespeople are empathetic and listening to the actual problem, and then they're agreeable to it. It's okay. We hear this all the time. We totally understand that cost is a concern, or that time is a concern, or that sticking with the routine is a concern. So you're aligning yourself to that buyer by agreeing with them, by showing empathy. And then you start to turn the conversation. So when these objections come up at the end of the tour, hear them, agree with them to a point, and then start to create a cycle of yes. So someone says, I don't really know if I have time for this. It's maybe a little bit expensive. I want to take some time to think about it. Maybe I can call you next week. And you can say, look, I totally get it. It's a busy week. You're not sure if you can get in. We talked about it though. And this is 5 minutes from your house. We have 3 facilities through the city. There's another one right by your work. And the cost gets you access to all of those. Don't you think that's a pretty good deal? And they start to say yes. So After you show empathy, you agree with them that their concern is valid, it's real, start to pull them back to things that you know they'll say yes to. Did you like the small group training classes? Yes, I did. I thought that was really great. Do you think, 5 minutes to your house is close enough? Is there a facility closer? Yes, I think that's close enough. And yes, you are the closest facility. And once you start to get them in the rhythm of yeses, then you can start to move them into confirmation that, I just want to make sure I've answered all your questions. It sounds like there's a lot of things here that you do like. Is there anything else that's a concern for you? And once there is nothing else that's a concern for them, don't wait for them to tell you they're ready to buy. This is a big miss for a lot of people who aren't used to sales, but go ahead and ask for the close. Don't be hesitant to say, Mr. Jones, I totally understand that cost is a concern and your timing is a concern, but we know this is the closest gym to your house. There's another facility right by your work. That value of what we give you in small group exercise classes, which is what you're looking for at both facilities, 35, 40 bucks a month seems pretty good. It seems like that's going to keep you committed to the program. Can we just go ahead and get you set up today? If you're really concerned about time, I'm just concerned that you might not come back in. By asking for that close, you're much more likely to get it than not. And now, of course, you're not always going to get it, and that's okay. Something you can do to draw people back in is schedule a freebie and a follow-up. I think this is actually a great time to introduce referrals. So let's say the person says no, they want to go home and talk to their spouse. You say, you know what, I totally get it, I understand. How about this? I'll set up a personal trainer tour so you and your wife can come in. You can get a personalized goal setting routine with a trainer that will set you up, and you guys can take a group exercise class for free. No problem. Let's go ahead and schedule that for the Tuesday at 7, which you and I talked about already during the tour. We know that time works for you. We know you like that class. Let's get you scheduled and you guys can come in for free. So now you took an opportunity for someone to walk away. You've anchored them back into your facility. You've given them an incentive to actually bring in someone else. And if you look at how behavior works, people are much more likely to do something when there's a significant other or a best friend or a family member involved. So this can be a great way to turn a no into a yes and increase that no into 2 sales versus 1. So these are some of the core steps you want to think about when managing the objection. And let's go ahead and move on to referrals. So we already talked about one way to establish a referral, and that's turning a no into a hopeful 2 yeses. But we asked our audience when they ask for referrals, and 63% of our respondents said during the sale, when they join, and continuously during membership. That sounds great, and I hope people are doing it the right way, but sometimes too much noise drowns out the referral. So we'll talk about that in a minute. We ask for referrals only during the sales process was 7%. We ask for referrals after they have joined and are a member, 21%. We don't currently ask for referrals, 5%. So an interesting mix here. We'll go ahead and talk about a good process to put in place for referrals. First is to be consistent and measure impact. Now, some of the things that really drive referrals are how frequently you offer them. If you are offering them all the time, it's kind of becomes white noise in your membership cycle, and people often forget about them. So be consistent in how you introduce a referral on a pre-sale side. For example, that closed loss model is a good look at saying, how can I pull someone back into the facility and help drive a referral at the same time? The type of member that signs up, so maybe they're signing up for a basic membership with personal training. That might be the right time to ask a certain segment for a referral versus anyone who's just signing up for a basic membership. And then how do you ask after their membership? And measure impact. If you see certain offers aren't generating referrals, take them out, take the noise out, make them more rare. and people will start to respond. Make sure when you are putting referral options out there, you're getting a response rate and measure that impact. I think it's critical that you incentivize members for referrals. If you have retail or ancillary services, it's great to tie them in. If you bring in a member, you get a free shake at our smoothie bar, 2 free shakes, whatever. You get free supplements, you get free t-shirt and hat. Try and stay away from the discounted monthly membership, but really try and get them tied into other services of your facility. So incentivize members for referrals. Know your fanatics. This kind of goes back to the social butterflies. Know the people who use your facility all the time. They talk about it, they're social in the facility. Go up to them, thank them, reward them, give them a free t-shirt, give them 2. Say, hey, give this to your significant other, your best friend. Next time you come in, we'd love to have you bring in a new member. People who are fanatical about your space love that, right? They love to be incentivized to keep being fanatical about your space. So look at different ways to understand who your fanatics are and reward them for it and ask them to bring more people in. This is another area where taking a little extra attention to your audience and doing something like a handwritten letter from your owner or GM can have a big impact. So at Christmas time, at their birthday, send them a handwritten note. You're not going to do that for all of your members, but maybe your top 50 fanatics, you will, and offer them some guest passes or some referral options in that note to pull in more people. Turn mistakes into opportunities. This is something that actually happened to me the other day at my gym. One of the resistance bands was broken. It had a slit halfway through it. And if you've ever experienced a resistance band ripping in half and slapping you in the arm, that's not a fun experience. So I brought it over to one of the personal trainers and said, hey man, this band is broken. I want to make sure someone doesn't get hurt. And he said, I really appreciate that. We'll take it off the floor right away. Sorry for the inconvenience. If you want to bring in someone next time, it's on us. Don't worry about it. And that was really smart, right? They turned inconvenience for me into like, oh, wow, your customer service handled that really well. And you know what? Maybe I do want to bring my wife in next time I come to the gym. She goes to another facility closer to work, but if she comes here, we can work out together more frequently. We can put our daughter into the daycare facility. It's a great way for them to pull in a low pressure sale. And then last but not least, milestone referrals. So take advantage of knowing when someone comes for their 50th time or their 100th time or it's their birthday, and reach out to them and let them know you're interested in having them refer more people to the facility. You've been here 100 times, you must really like it. If you think there's anyone in your family or friends group that would like it just as much as you, let us know and we'll give you XYZ. So have that process in place. Use technology to push some of those campaigns, right? Like milestone referrals. You can do batch emails around people's whose birthdays are with a canned message. You don't have to worry about your trainers or your floor staff creating that message every single time, and can drive much more membership referrals for your facility. So I'll just put together some final thoughts and leave people with some closing notes. So here are the key takeaways that I think are important today. One is sales management is really shifting to a more human-centric sales coaching model. So establish a good coaching model internally. Be accountable to a process, not a script. Make sure your staff has the freedom to create real relationships and connection with people. Often when you have stringent scripts, it's hard, it's canned, people feel that, it's more salesy. If you have a process of questions and you have an understanding of buying profiles, your sales staff, you should trust your sales staff enough to be creative and agile to talk to that person properly and create a better relationship and conversation to convert them to a member. This is where technology comes into play. Measure results, implement change, but be realistic about your close ratios, right? You're not going to close 100% of your on-site tours, nor should you. People are going to come in that aren't the right fit. Don't force it. In fact, if you think someone is a better fit for another gym, let them know that. Sometimes providing that value resonates more than not bringing it up. So by sharing that, hey, this gym down the street is really much more of what you're looking for. It sounds to me like you're looking for a boutique studio. I would recommend you go there. You talk to Gary. I know him. He's one of the head trainers over there. He's a great guy. He really aligns with some of the goals you have in place. Tell him I sent you. Go ahead. One, it can create a rapport with another facility for them to send people to you that's not a right fit. And two, that person's going to talk about you at lunch, at dinner, at some time. So, I was touring Club Acme, and it was great, but it didn't really meet what I was trying to do, and they referred me to Boutique Studio Acme. So don't hesitate to offer advice when you don't think it's a realistic close opportunity. And then again, the use of technology to, one, understand buying profiles, but two, to prepare for that buying profile when they're coming in. Seeing that this lead came in through Facebook and the type of ads you're running on Facebook align with someone who might want to lose weight is important versus email campaigns that are going out around a price reduction for the end of the year. So understanding the profiles you're pulling in, where they're coming from, and how to talk to them is important. And then ultimately, the whole point of this webinar is to be human, to listen, to understand, and adjust. So again, going back to don't be scripted, have a process, have questions and listening skills increased, and give your people the ability to understand the needs of the buyer and the unique value props you have within your facility to meet those needs. And if you don't be afraid to turn them away and offer value by suggesting where they may go. So these are some key takeaways I want you to think about as you think about the human connection moving forward. Just as a note, this presentation did have a lot of information and it was recorded. So if you want a copy of the recording, don't hesitate to reach out. We also have a webinar, kind of part 3 of this webinar series coming up. It's with a customer of ours, Fitness Connection. The topic we'll be talking about is the process and impact of managing your data. And we're actually doing it twice. We're going to do it once with Club Solutions on December 10th at 2:30 Eastern, and again with Jonas on December 12th at 2 p.m. Eastern. This is my information. Again, if you want the recording, please reach out. If you want more information about the upcoming webinars or anything to do with Club OS, don't hesitate to reach out. I hope you learned something today, and I'll go ahead and look and see if we have any questions coming in. Let's see, we'll give it a couple of minutes here. If you had any questions, let us know. Someone who wrote in, Boston was one of the 2020 National Geographic spots to visit. I'll have to check out the list again. I would agree with that. I love Boston, lived there for a little bit, great city. But it looks like no other questions are coming in. So we will go ahead and end the presentation there. Thank you for joining us today, and we look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Bye-bye.